People of the world, welcome to the first edition of this No Name podcast. We planned this a little too early, so we don't really got a name for it at the moment. But if you have a name for it, let us know. Matter of fact, comment with the most likes. That's the name for it for the next week. We're going to rename it to whatever that is. So drop a comment on what you think this should be named. I guess we should go introductions, really. This is part of Malcontents. Most of you watching will probably know what that is, but if you don't, that is a clothing brand that me and my partner right here, Drew, started. We started that in 2021, making clothes and apparel. And, we'll get into the whole story of the why and how in a little bit. But before we do that, I want to introduce the person to my left, your right. Adrian, a.k.a. Tip, also a.k.a. Mr. Before I Die. So yeah, I don't know if you want to give them a quick little introduction.
I could do a quick little introduction.
Yeah, just a quick one.
My name is Adrian Giovani, Mr. Before I Die. I run the brands Before I Die, now Before I Die and Before I Die Femme. We've been operational since 2018, really consistent since 2020 and on, and I'm just honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
All right. So you people don't know, but me and Adrian go way, way back to when we had opposite hairstyles. when I had dreads and he had short hair, and we decided to switch. It was a mutual agreement. But you brought up an interesting point though. The designation between Before I Die and Before I Die Femme. Can you go into that a little bit on what that designation is?
Yeah, so my assistant Allie was kind of working with us for pretty much since the brand started.
Mm-hmm.
Our first drop was June of 2018, and December of 2019 is when Allie kind of came on as my assistant. Okay. So consistently from that time, we kind of been working together, and there's always been, I just always liked kind of her eye for design. She's always very right about everything. Like anytime there'd be like a colorway decision or just a cut decision, she would be like, "Oh, change it to this," and it always would just hit. It would like she was just on point on everything. So when it came to the last pop-up we had in New York, everyone kept coming up to her because at the time she was with my assistant, so she was kind of still running like the tables and stuff like that while I was doing like the meeting of everybody, going through the crowd and doing all my talking and boosting up sales and stuff. And all the women were coming up to her saying, "Hey, like when's like more of the women's wear coming out?" Because I think at that point we had maybe 4 women's wear pieces total, like ever for the brand, and it kind of just made sense to. The transition was kind of so natural that we didn't even really talk about it. It was kind of like, hey, so we're starting Before I Die Femme and you're running it.
Right. So boom. It wasn't like an intentional thing. It kind of more so grew into its own kind of monster
facts
thing.
And now our first drop was literally a month ago. So we're now kind of going to be consistent with kind of like a schedule of like 2 drops where it's like men's femme. Mm-hmm. We have a couple of different expansions that we're also looking at that might come out this year as well. Okay. But as of right now, it's just Before I Die and Before I Die femme.
Got you. Okay.
Word. So good that we got that nice little preference. But I kind of want to let's take it back just a little bit and really trying to delve into why you even stepped into this field. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I know you said you and Rico go back. Me and you recently met, obviously. But let's go back to young Adrian. You know what I'm saying? Whew. What does that look like? Your childhood.
That's what it looked like.
Your upbringing. You know what I'm saying?
Young Adrian had literally Rico's hair, bro. Like young Adrian. If you want to look at young Adrian, literally, like my hair was literally short and blonde. Like funny enough, like
it was literally, it was a reverse.
That's crazy.
I would say like my, childhood upbringing kind of really started, obviously, I still live in my childhood home, like to this day. I grew up in North Lauderdale, maybe 20 minutes outside of like Coral Springs, 45 minutes outside of like what most people would know as like general Miami area and things like that. Very, I would say, culturally diverse neighborhood. There was like just my street alone, you would meet every ethnicity in the Bible. like you would meet everybody. And it was kind of like that whole, I guess, neighborhood was growing up at the same time too. So we were always outside, always being bad jits, bro. Like that's what it was. And like funny enough, there's a soccer field literally in this, like walkable from my house. That's kind of where I kind of picked up soccer. Obviously, that's for anybody who doesn't know how I know Rico.
Okay, but
we played ball together, and it was kind of just like a very good upbringing. I had an older brother, I had a younger brother, and now we're a total of 7.
Sheesh.
I told them they need to stop. But we finally have my baby sister, because it's been all boys. Like it's literally 6 boys and 1 girl. So we've kind of finally, we're like, all right, now can we stop?
That's what we were waiting for.
Yeah, that's what we were waiting
for. For one more of the girl, and then that cut it off.
So it's there's never been a lack of inspiration in terms of I have to kind of make my way in this world, because I have 5 younger brothers looking up to me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like, oh yeah, I got my little brother, I got to do it for him. I have 5. And now a little sister. So there's never been a lack of motivation to do what I do.
Gotcha.
So like kind of with that whole background in line, just going into like middle schools when I first kind of started getting into dressing, like really putting on outfits, they weren't necessarily good. I'm just being honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't necessarily good, but I knew like, okay, like I felt confident, and that's all that mattered. And I think that
did you have one of them highlighter fits? You know, the Volt neons. One of them.
Not confirm or deny these allegations.
He's part of the U.S. Polo assassination.
Yeah, one of them.
Maybe I had like 1 USPA. I ain't gonna lie. Maybe like 1 USPA. I can't sit here and lie on the podcast. Like that's just wouldn't be truthful. But yeah, I was always like with the big horse polos, you know, because I went to Margate Middle. Like if anybody knows where Margate Middle is and what the culture there is, it's like big face polo, shorts,
from
and
the
some
shout
boats.
out Margate, you know what I'm talking about.
Shout out Margate. Come on, if you ain't had the shorts with the boats, come on now. Like, what are you doing?
Shout out the black zip up U.S. Polo jacket with the red logo.
With the red logo, classic. Like we're talking about real classic garments right here. And I think really by like 7th, 8th grade is when I really started getting into just like looking into fashion brands more than just like, okay, like what is everybody else wearing? I was kind of looking into like, okay, this is cool, even though I couldn't afford any of it. Like the whole Jordan wave, the whole like that whole hypebeast era is when I really first started getting into actually knowing what the different clothes were, different shoes, and just really getting into it.
Right.
By 9th grade, still couldn't afford any of it, but you know, I would find my way to finesse or just like, you know, trade. You know, you do like trades and stuff like that. Like this is bringing like so many memories. I'm like, I would never do this. Like, why am I trading shoes?
Like, places you wouldn't go with a gun now.
Like, yeah,
going to get shoes. Ridiculous.
Like trading shoes. Like, yeah, pull up to the to the Walmart and just meet me in the parking lot. We're gonna trade shoes. Like that sounds crazy. What? Crazy operation. But I guess that's kind of like where I really started getting into clothes, like seriously. And by 10th, 11th grade, still couldn't really afford it, but I started working. So I had my little $300 checks.
Yeah.
I
thought you was banging.
Oh my gosh. I thought I was balling. I got my new J's every other week. Come on, bro. Like that was the time where I first like really was like, okay, like I'm dressing in my mind. Not really. But by senior year, well, really by like middle of junior year, senior year is when I really started sketching my own things. This was even before I Die was necessarily a thing. It was kind of an idea and a concept. You know, obviously Josh and Nicoy, we kind of all had a conglomerate where we wanted to start a brand all on our own.
Okay.
All together. At first. That didn't work out because we're all hard-headed and we all have our own very distinctive brains.
Right.
So by senior years, kind of we not necessarily split apart in terms of friendship because we're still friends to this day. Like those are my dogs, but split up in terms of the brand-wise. So obviously, I became Before I Die. Josh was Adamson Matter, and Nicoy was I Live Global. And we all had this conglomerate One Link. That's when we used to do like the events, like the art gallery, the fashion shows, things like that. So that's where I first began with the brand. But if you were to ask me in terms of how the brand itself was really started, it quite literally was just like a 3 a.m. night. I'm just sitting on the basic ripped version of Photoshop because I wasn't paying for that at that age. Sitting at the computer, just like testing out just a bunch of different designs. And for whatever reason, there was I had a quote that was super long. Like
Mm-hmm.
the original name for the brand was like Adrian Giovani's Never Ending Influence. Get it before I die. On like one T-shirt, it's like a quote, huge
He's
quote.
making a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah, literally. And I like, and for some reason, the words like "before I die" on its own just stood out so strong to me, and I was like, okay, I'm running with that. For Instagram purposes, get it before I die, because I was able to get that on everything, Twitter, you know, like all social platforms. But the brand name itself is Before I Die, and that kind of by senior year, maybe I want to say May was when I really was like testing out samples and like trying to get something out. Around that same time, Virgil Abloh had his debut at for Louis Vuitton, his spring summer show, and that moment to me was like, oh shit, I can do this. Like I see a person that looks like me doing this. You know what I'm saying? Seeing that moment, him and Kanye just like go like hug on the side and shit, and just realizing all the work that it must have took to even get to that one moment. And that was just his first, you know. It sparked something in me, and I literally dropped a week after. Like I was like, I think the Virgil debut, and correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube, it's maybe the 18th, and we dropped literally the 29th.
Oh,
okay, like even my business phone password to this day is the original drop date, June 29th, 2018. Like still to this day.
Don't y'all go looking for his phone that you know the password.
Yeah, because you can't find that. You can't find that.
Okay, so then here, I'll tap into that then. So like, how important, you know, to you, or, you know, potential other Black brand owners or people that are looking to get into it, like to see people that have done it, you know, that look like you or that came from a similar place, like how much of a difference does that make in your, you know, attempt to get where you want to go?
I think it's huge. I think that's one of the number one motivations for me, is just like looking at that version of myself, my 16, 17, 18-year-old self, and saying, damn, like I hope he's proud of what I've done. And not only just for me and my past version of myself, but for my brothers, for any young creative kid that wants to get into it, and you know, like just having that, I guess, person that they can look at and say, oh, this person is doing it, and I'm nowhere near where I ultimately want to be, but I'm now kind of getting into doing interviews, doing things like that to have people understand the journey, because before I was very closeted, and I then had a realization. This was last summer for our 5-year anniversary. This summer made it 6 years in New York. This kid came up to me. We were setting up. This was maybe 2 hours before we were actually opening up doors, still setting up, just you know, chilling. We were chilling outside of the venue in New York, and this kid comes up to me like, hey, like I just wanted to try to come by before everything gets started. I was following you since 2018. Like I'm very proud of like you and what you've done.
That's
and
crazy.
This is 1,000 miles from home. This young kid, I think he was at the time maybe like 18, 19. He came up to me when I was like 21. And even though like we're very close in age, it still had it in my brain like, oh shit, like people are looking, not necessarily like looking up to me in terms of like, oh, like I should be like, yeah, looking up to me. It's just it is what it is in terms of this person that's been following this journey since 2018. I should be talking more about what it takes to even get here.
And they're very appreciative of like your work, what you've done to
and
grow from point A to point B to all the way to point XYZ, all of that stuff.
And it's very humbling, because to me and correct me if I'm wrong, I know there must be times where within your brand and design work you might think, not necessarily doubt, but you just think, okay, you're kind of going through the motion of I have to do this, I have to put this out, I have to do this, I have to put this out, and then it takes that one person to say, oh yeah, you're really crushing this shit, and then
and it's a morale, but you get
those batteries right back in, like, oh shit, all right, bet. And that moment for me was like, okay, this is more than an all right bet. I have to do this, and I have to start speaking about what I'm doing. And that same night was pretty much like our biggest like out of state pop up. And I don't want to say like he was like, because funny enough, I've never seen him ever again. He never hit me up on socials, but it almost was like that felt like, oh my gosh, like what if this person is literally like some angel that literally came in and like blessed the pop up? Because literally that pop up, we had 200 heads in Brooklyn, New York, come through. Like that's insane.
Crazy,
you know, like for a random kid to just come up 2 hours before the event, like, hey, I've been following you since 2018. We chop it up, and then he disappears, and then it's the biggest pop-up I have in New York. To me, that was like, okay, one, I got to take this super seriously, and I have to talk about what it takes to get here. Because I feel like a lot of people from the outside might see it and think, oh, like, everything is flawless. He has all this stuff going on. This is easy. But it is not. It is not. Like,
I think that's that's like the whole broader take a step back. That's the whole like entrepreneur thing general is a lot of people see point A to point Z, but they don't see like
They only
point
see
A, B,
Instagram
C,
posts,
D,
yeah.
And then when you went back to point A, and then
Yo.
went to point G,
Yeah.
all the way back to point A again. So and that's
Trial
like
and error.
really the why we're doing this whole scope as well, is to kind of get people to understand that process.
Yeah.
Not only so they know like what we go through, but also more so to like inspire other people, maybe that they just had to get back to point A recently. And it's kind of like you said, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I have to do this, I have to post on Instagram, and they just got to that point. They might see this or like a different interview or whatever, and they can see other people who in relative terms have been successful going through the same things that they do, and it can
Facts.
motivate them to keep going and keep pushing forward for their goals.
For sure.
Right. And the biggest thing for me is that like we're coming from a background of clothing, but it could be a background from finance, it could be a background from sports, it could be whatever. Like all these people go through different struggles and challenges, and for us as people, it's really hard to sometimes get through those mental barriers, those physical barriers, whatever those challenges may be. So I think that's big on you to be able to kind of realize what kind of situation you're in and kind of take yourself out that situation and kind of open up to where people can kind of look and see, all right, bet like I'm doing this for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like there's sometimes you get clouded and you get stuck in the moment, and you just feel like it's never ending and you go through the motions like you said, but once you get that, shout out that kid, by the way, you know what I'm saying? You never know what you never know what you're going to do.
This, please do comment so we can find out like who you are.
Seriously, I want to send you some stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that's I'm gonna go back to your New York pop-up, because that is something I wanted to touch on and I didn't before. Is that Adrian's pop-ups they could be bigger, but they are very successful. And like you said, they were out in New York multiple times, not just once.
Blessing.
Living it up, being
Blessing.
wild. So I know we talked about a little bit about Ale and Fem, and like you kind of briefly touched on the reason you were in New York, but can you go through a little bit how? Because you skipped a lot of states on the way up to New York.
Yeah.
So can you kind of go through how we went from doing some in Margate and Broward County like pop-ups, to
Boom,
popping
Brooklyn.
out in Brooklyn? You feel me?
So, there's my homeboy Sachi Yanko. Man, like that's when I say shout out. Like if you ever watch this, shout out, because I would not be able to do any of that New York stuff without you, and you've helped me grow that base so much. Pretty much, literally, I met this guy like at one of my pop-ups maybe in 2020, I believe. He came to one of my pop-ups. We chopped it up for maybe 10 minutes, and it was genuine from there. I kind of posted on my story like, oh, like I want to do a pop-up like in New York, like pretty much asking the internet for help. We had a small conversation, and we were booked pretty much in a week. Okay. I wish I had a bigger story than that, but sometimes it's just, you have to just be able to trust people, like meet people and trust people. Yeah. And I think that thankfully God has blessed me with good discernment in terms of people to work with. Mm-hmm. I'm not always 100% right with it, because you can't be. You're human, right? But when I met this guy, like Yanko, like we were locked in from the beginning. Like very similar situation. I feel like with me and you, where there didn't have to be much of a conversation in terms of like, oh, like who are you, like there wasn't much of that, because I feel like once I have like a friend who knows a friend, I feel like it's that much easier, because it's like I know Rico, like I trust Rico with my life, so it's like if Rico has this person who's so close to him, I would know I can trust that person as well. And I didn't really have people who like knew Yanko like that, but I had a lot of my supporter base who like knew who he was, because he was from West Palm. Like a piece of that base that would come to the Broward pop-ups was from West Palm, so a lot of people like didn't even necessarily vouch for him, but as soon as he walked in the room, I saw that how people would react and just be like, oh, like he was cool with everybody, like in terms of he had that face and that base already within my own support group already. So for me, it just made sense, if I'm going to go to New York, why would not touch down with someone who's from Florida in general, you know what I'm saying, lock in with someone who has a similar base already. And he had literally connections to venues already, so literally was like, I got that venue for $0 for New York. Well, that's the second venue I did in New York. The first one I did in New York was was also kind of like a trusting moment where I met somebody literally via the internet. Shout out to Seven House. Like, you guys are amazing. We literally linked up one time. He gave me an crazy price and I was like, yeah, booked. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
I think a lot of it comes with just risk. Like, I'm sitting here telling you, like, there's times where this brand could have and probably should have failed plenty of times where I would literally put, if there was like an out-of-state pop-up, whatever, like, and I had $3,000 to get my team out there, get the venue, get the merchandise, whatever, and there's 3 brands sitting in the Before I Die bank account, I would risk it. Right. I'm not suggesting that at all, because looking back on it, I was mad for doing stuff like that.
He's not a financial advisor.
But and that's why I literally just hired a financial advisor, because like, I was moving mad.
There you go.
And I was just, before off camera, I was just coming up with Drew, like, hey, like, talking about personal finances as well, trying to get that.
Count your chickens.
Just getting that in order. But I definitely think that we should, always kind of make sure you know what type of risk you're really running.
Gotcha. So, for those who don't know, we did a pop-up last night in Pompano. For me, it was at least fun. I mean, going to Adrian's pop-ups are always fun for me, because not only now there's a more business side. Like, before there wasn't, because we've been doing this for a while. But not only the business side, but also us just having genuine fun. Yeah. So at this pop-up, it was our brand, Malcontents, Before I Die, and then Most Hated MILF, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
How do you know her? What went into that?
When I tell you, like, as I said before, like, it's going to sound like a lot of repeat stuff, but I tell you, very humble. God has blessed me with discernment. I've met her, same situation, internet. Boom, she posted something. I need a DJ for a house party.
Okay.
This is when I very, very first started DJing. Like, I first DJ'd at that same pop-up I was telling you about in New York last summer. Hasn't even been a full year yet, but maybe like 2 months after that was when she posted that story, and I was like, hey, I got a laptop. If you have a speaker, I'll figure it out. This is before I even had a board or anything like that. I was just doing it. So
I can fade really well.
Like, there's no transitions, nothing. But I had good song selection, and I could fade in and out. Cool. So we had a pretty good turnout. We had the house party. It was all good and everything like that. Art Basel was maybe a couple months after that, maybe like 1 or 2 months after that. She needed a DJ again for an event she was having. Okay. Same week that I was having my fashion show. But honestly, sometimes I feel like I work better in the chaos of a storm, where it's like, if my calendar isn't completely full, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. Right. And that would unmotivate me to do certain things. But even if there's too much on my calendar, I would rather go through the chaos and get all that done, and then feel that accomplishment of like, damn, I did all of that crazy hecticness. So that's pretty much what happened. I had her show Wednesday, and I had my show that Friday. Okay. So I had to prepare that set also while preparing an entire fashion show with our Femme debut before we even dropped it online. Shout out to Ali. She did amazing with that.
Was that the green one? Was that the green top and bottom? Was that first one?
That was from New York. That was when we debuted that in New York. This was when we did like the dresses and things like that with the balloon print.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was pretty much how I met her, and ever since then we've been locked in. Like, me and Sasha have been like this, and it's just the same thing of just where I just feel like I have that ability to just sense, like, feel somebody out. Like, I've been through enough phoniness, and if you live in Miami, you live in Broward County, you will meet a lot of phoniness, a lot of bad business partners.
That you will.
If you meet enough of them, you see the signs very early on. To be honest, like, I don't know another way to really say it, but
it's real.
I met Sasha, we just had that connection, we clicked, and we've been locked in ever since. And I helped her out with that the Art Basel show I was DJing, but I also helped kind of event coordinate for that. She had her debut from New York Fashion Week a couple months ago. I helped her out with that as well. And then for her third event was this pop-up. So obviously, I helped her out with that. Gotcha. And yeah, we've been locked in ever since. She's super talented, and y'all just wait on her. She started literally her brand officially to the public 6 months ago, but she's been working on it for a very long time. So
oh wow, that's
okay.
They're moving quick.
Yeah. She had good products out there,
and she does it all herself. Yeah.
She is
talented.
Good stuff.
So okay, and then I'm glad you. So I have this idea. Well, not necessarily idea. I just want to touch on the idea of being self-made. What do you kind of think about that, or how much has the role of these relationships, or maybe a little bit of extra help along the way, or a little bit of luck? Like, what kind of experiences have you had where, like you said, you might have been down to the last penny, and you got to make this shake, or just different situations that you came. How did you kind of get through? What has that relationships been like? How has that helped you along? Or do you feel you're more self-made and whatever you put into it, you're deserving, and that's kind of how you should have got it? So how's that came for you?
I definitely feel like when a lot of times people say they're self-made, they don't mean it. They're not really being truthful about it.
Okay.
Because I think no one is truly self-made. Even if you did everything yourself, there's even as much as I did in terms of like we're doing it. Me and Ali are doing everything ourselves, like back to the wall kind of situation. There's times where you just need the help. Like for example, with when I was telling you about getting the venue literally for scotch free in New York. I could have gone and tweeted out like, yeah, like we just did this all on our own, but I'm so thankful for everyone who helps me out in every step of the way, whether they're a part of like, for example, you guys being at the pop-up, obviously like it just helps bring so many more faces, both to your brand and both to my brand as well. More eyes to the brand. Right. So I thank you guys. I thank anybody who has supported or been a part of this at all, because without supporters and business partners, I wouldn't be where I am today. Like I could say I'm self-made all up and down, and to a degree I am, to a degree I'm not, because at the same time, I would still be here in a sense, but I don't know if I would be to this level this early on so quickly, Mm-hmm. And I think having those helping hands along the way is just what boosts you up. Where you have those right connections, you'll get there a lot farther. Right. Because I met before I got stalked into like my first kind of boutique down in Miami. I met Corella. Shout out Corella. You're the best guy fucking ever. Like pretty much a huge mentor to me. He sat me down one day. We were just kind of chopping it up when this was maybe first 3 years into the brand. Mm-hmm. Literally 2021 I got stalked in Velvet Velour. Shout out Velvet Velour. We were chopping it up. And he looked at me, he said, you have to understand like that the game that you're in, most people don't get the respect that you have until like 10 years into the game. Right. Yeah. Most people don't. And he was like telling me like, yo, with what you have going on right now, you have to understand you're lucky, and don't ever let it get to your head, because as much as how quick I got it, it's the same way you can lose it. Yeah. And when he said that to me, like, look, like, so by the time I have my 10 years within Before I Die, it's gonna to other people, it's gonna feel like, yo, he's been doing this for 20 years just because we've been consistent, mm-hmm. and we've been pushing boundaries every single time, and taking risk on top of that. Maybe some of the risk early on I probably shouldn't have done, like when I was telling you about the 3K for the venue, 3K in the account. Right. But let's do it.
It's a no risk, no reward type of situation. You put it on the line, not expecting something in return, but for the potential that there could be something in return. And so, like the flip side of that coin is,
it's a lot of benefits.
Better financial management, and you decide not to do it. Yeah. Then you never get that opportunity possibly. Mm-hmm. So that's the other flip side of it is kind of it's a chancy game. Yeah. Like it's a very gambling game.
And very early on, like sometimes I don't necessarily suggest, because I don't suggest people necessarily did what I did at all, honestly, because it's like when I tell you there's sometimes situations by the skin of my teeth that we just it would happen to be, okay, we spent this much, and then our sales just capped out what I paid for everything, mm-hmm. and then boom, we make some money on top of that. So it's like it's literally a blessing every single time that I was able to do those things so very early on, because mm-hmm. honestly, as a young man myself and as a young brand, it's like without financial backing from anyone. This is grassroots, like out of our pocket. Yep. So obviously that comes with having to be super strategic about certain financial mm-hmm. decisions. Yeah. Sometimes we're always strategic, and sometimes we're just like, hey, let's take this risk, because ultimately it's like, what brand do you know from Broward County is doing events in New York and Atlanta 3 years in? Right. Exactly. It doesn't happen really.
And actually we've had this conversation as well sometimes, because like full carte blanche, like even sometimes he'll ask me like how you have like such a big following and stuff, and I'm like, honestly, like there's not really like a secret formula to it. Like it's not like he did X, Y, and Z and got it. I was like, people are just very committed to his brand. They like the stuff you do, and crazy, I'm like, it's honestly not something that we're gonna replicate. We're gonna have to do it in our own natural.
Everybody has their own journey. Yeah.
So like we like not to say compare to you, but like we can't look at you and be like, how do we do that? Because yours is so vastly different from 99% of the way other entrepreneurs do anything, not just the clothing industry. And so like, yeah, we've touched on that as well plenty of times.
Because it's just everybody has their own journey, and I feel like when it ultimately clicks for you guys, like, and I'm sure you've had those moments where like you have that product and you're just like it clicks, and you guys are further kind of understanding your own branding. Because I feel like I know myself, and you guys can touch on this as well. In your design experience and my design experience, I know there must have been just that moment when you kind of first start where you're doing it, you don't ultimately know exactly the whole branding and everything like that, but you're just like, we have a name, we have a couple logos, let's do it. Everything else will come, you know. And that's just advice I give to anybody. Like the whole planning for 2-3 years and then dropping once every 6 months after that, like, I'm sorry, but the internet moves way too quick. And if you want to build a base, you have to come out, and you have to come out consistently.
And tying into that, I tell him that too for his own personal brand stuff, because like you know me, like I kind of not to be an a-hole, but like I kind of do everything, like whether it's setting up this, like music, editing, audio, designing, like I do everything. All the above. And like so he's trying to get into like editing his own videos for his personal brand. And I'm like, look, like it's one of those things where like you're not gonna be perfect the first time. You're not gonna be perfect the 10th time. You're not gonna be perfect the 1,000th time. Yeah, facts. Like you just gotta keep doing it, and like you'll keep getting better at it. It's one of those things like you just gotta keep doing it and forcing yourself to get through all of the crap, and you'll get the actual good stuff that you want. You just have to actually consistently do it. Yep.
And sorry to cut in, but literally Rico came up to me right before we kind of opened doors for the second half of the pop-up. We had the after party. He was like, I'm going to edit this video really quick and post it. This was maybe in 5 to 10 minutes. I got a notification. Boom. The video was posted. I'm like, how did he do this? Like, so like, just shout out to Rico and just like having that ability. And I feel like you two balance out each other so well in terms of how you guys can just strategically go through things. Like, it's like I'll get a call from Rico, and I'll get a call from Drew, and it's like I feel like I'm talking to like not necessarily two completely different people, but it's like two kind of different views, but from the same understanding. Right, but it's like when Rico might be sometimes a little more risky and say like, hell, like we want to do X, Y, and Z, then Drew will come in and be like, okay. So, like Drew would be like, so
we don't have money for this. I don't know why you want to do this right now.
I don't know who confirmed it.
We don't have money for this. I don't know why you keep making stuff. We don't have the money to fund this. So.
And then I'll be sitting there on my laptop, get that error message. Hey, yo, you trying to help me out with this? I know you busy and all, but yo, I'm about to send you a picture. All right. But yeah, nah.
And I think that honestly, it's like, you guys having each other, it's so essential, because me without having Allie, like just to dive into it's just a little bit, Allie, like when I tell you everything, the whole self-made thing, before any of the extra help outside, me and Allie, the dynamic motherfucking duo, sorry for my French, but I had to say it like that, I wouldn't be able to be here. None of this would be able to be done without Allie. And it's like you have to have, even if it's that one person, I'm telling you guys will be able to move mountains in comparison on your own. There's just you can't compare it. Just having the ability to have someone that you can bounce your ideas off of, and you respect their opinion, because obviously, and I know
that's a big part of it too. And like we don't. That's another point. Like between me and Drew, like I can say like Drew's one of the few people like I genuinely have probably never had an argument with in my entire life.
That's facts.
There are many things that like we'll disagree on.
Like if I fucked up and did not give a good pass, I'm hearing it. I didn't loft that shit over the top the way I'm supposed to. I'm hearing it. But it's all in good love, because it's like.
But it's because I know you can do it. It's not from a place of like, why did you do this? Like if I'm ever in a place where I'm like not necessarily yelling at you, but like demanding something of you.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
It's coming from a place that like I know that you have the ability to do this. Yeah. So like I am wanting to, and I expect you to do it. It's more so one of those things for sure.
Yeah. No, my perspective. That's actually hilarious you say that.
I had to just say
real talk. The field get crazy. Yeah. But like my perspective on it is like, you know, you see somebody as, you know, their best that they can give you is a C, right? If they give you a C every single time, you know, hooray. We're good. We'll call them.
Yeah.
It's when somebody that, you know, you think produces A output.
Yeah.
and you're getting D's, C's, F's,
Like, come on,
B's.
like,
You're like,
you
come
gotta
on,
be
you know what I'm
honest.
saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I have more faith in you. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. So I think that's where that kind of differential happens. And it's funny that you touched on that. So for sure.
Yeah, because I think honestly, it's just like you have to have that person, because without it, you not necessarily run wild, but without checks and balances,
You're not as grounded.
Yeah, this
Like,
is just what it is.
You're just not as grounded because like and like you said, like he is a very well complimented me because all the things that he's good at, I'm terrible at, and all the things that he's not good at, I'm good at. So it's a very
Balance.
well balanced because like, could I do this myself? Yes, but like for example, like the financial aspect of what we do, the shit that he does. If you ask me to do that shit, like
I'm bored.
Yeah,
I'm falling asleep.
I would-
I'm falling asleep 10 minutes in.
I would
Like,
have never. I would have stopped after the first drop.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going through all that. But like that's something that he's so well versed in, and it's something where like I know it takes like another thing off your plate as
Yeah.
well because like
'Cause
I
part of-
know I don't have to worry
cost,
about
units,
that part.
pricing, like all of that.
Yeah,
because
because he's gonna figure it out. Like me and him can talk numbers, but necessarily financing credit or which credit we need to build, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
And so like it pairs well with that, and like the same thing on his side, he can focus on like the financial aspects and like where we're diverting marketing strategies and
Yep.
all of that, and then I can focus on like making it real in 15 seconds
Yeah.
instead of having to do other stuff. So like that's another good point is that like having another person that keeps you grounded but also compliments you.
Yep.
Because sometimes when you get someone that like if you guys see too much eye to eye and like you guys are kind of just a bunch of yes men to
Yeah.
each other. And
Okay,
there's not
and
really
then-
one of you to be like, okay, we should probably
And when problems
take a step
arise, it's
back.
like you guys are kind of facing the same problems
Right.
because you guys are thinking in the same way.
yeah. For sure.
All right. So, like, we had the event yesterday. Well, you had the event. We kind of just took part in that, and we appreciate that. Like I said, that was dope. It was cool for me actually because that was my first time like being active at a pop up in Florida. Like
Yeah.
we've done other stuff, but that was my first time getting a chance to experience that. So that was dope. But my question to you is, what kind of stuff do you have on the horizon? Is there any extra sauce that we can
Yeah.
get, extra plans or whatever, or just kind of what kind of outlook that you have, moving forward or, for the next few months, next year, whatever, what type of projects you got in mind?
I can there's some I can't disclose just yet
Yeah,
because
of
I don't
course,
want to.
of course.
You don't want to kind of like pick the fruit too early.
Right,
Right.
right.
But I can definitely say there's more expansions of the brands coming for sure. Like potentially 2 by the end of the year, but definitely at least 1. Where we want to kind of expand the market in terms of just different products that we create. That might honestly be as early as the end of this month. That expansion might come out. But it's a very natural kind of adaptation of Femme. So it won't be something that's completely super new. But if you're
Right.
kind of getting what I'm hinting at, that might, I don't know, it's very cryptic, but
Yeah.
definitely more expansion from us. A lot that we have in the works in terms of over the next year and a half of just getting into kind of the reshaping of the brand. Because I feel like after 5 years, it's really realistically, it's like every 2 to 3 years, you should be kind of remolding and like
Adapt or die. Right.
readapting the brand. So this past month alone, we've kind of did our hiring of just like pretty much a whole extra, like pretty much doubled the size of our team.
Okay.
So
Can I ask what was the size of your team before?
we were roughly 6.
Okay.
So me, Ali, then I had my 2 photographers, Kenzie and Liz, as my stylists.
Okay.
And now we have a full team. I just hired a brand strategist who's going to be helping us out, a set graphic designer. So I just take that off of my plate because that is
right, and that's a big
it's
part
heavy.
of it as well.
It is
It's a
heavy.
huge part of it.
And now I actually hired my little brother to do my finance stuff because he's in school for finance and stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so me and him will kind of be partnering that. Obviously, like I'll kind of oversee certain things just to make sure X, Y, and Z because it is still my baby. But eventually, he'll kind of run that full time, and that's kind of another part of just like why this is a thing in terms of the brand. Like, I want this to be a legacy thing, and that's why I made very early on, this was 2 years ago, I made Ali a partner of the brand Steak itself. So Before I Die and all of its conglomerates she has a piece of, and Femme, she owns it. You know, like that is her brand. And I just think like that's kind of like the full scale of like what the brand is in terms of legacy and things like that. I want it to be something that no matter what, anyone in my family has a place here. You know what I'm saying? Like, where if there's any time, you know, people need to be helped out or whatever the case may be, they need a job. Like, I want to be able to have that
ability
be able to do that. Because
Yeah.
I think that is something, building that generational wealth is just unmatched. And this is something where I'm so dedicated to it very early on because I want it to be that eventually, you know? And the building blocks now have to be set in place. And ultimately, with Before I Die, just being Before I Die, it not that it won't be enough, but there's going to be a lot more coming from the brand. Like, this is going to be an entire ecosystem, which I don't want to delve into every kind of part of what we're going to be doing, but we move into our new office because we're kind of changing offices right now just to kind of refit just with the size of the team now. To where we're just going to be a lot more consistent. And now that we have this full team, me and Ali have the ability to just sit back, sketch something out, send it to our brand strategist, who's then going to create an agenda for every month. My photographers get alerted, my graphic designers get alerted, so we know exactly what we're doing month to month, and continuing that expansion. Because it's just that time. After 5 years completed, boom, I kind of already was building the building blocks, kind of looking out to scout people. So now that we're at 6 years, I'm doing the actual hiring, fitting the pieces where they need to be, and now we have this full plan by August.
Scaling.
When we move into this new office, full guns blazing.
Gotcha. I think not necessarily an issue like me and Drew have, but kind of something that needs to, for efficiency wise, needs to be improved. So I know you spoke a little bit about stuff that was coming later this year and next year. I think, and like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the things that we can probably work on more is our planning of releases and drops, etc. If you can go into a little bit how you necessarily plan those out, because for me, just for an example, so like for me, we just did the crop tops, the two
Fire.
crop tops. Appreciate you.
Fire.
But so like for me, it gets to this thing, and you might have had this early on, like when you were first starting, where it's kind of like 5-6 months out from generally when I want to release. So let's say, like, I think we were having conversations of crop tops in what, January? Yeah. So like it's January, we're having discussions about crop tops, and you know, we're kind of I'll design like 2, 3, 4, 5, just kind of
Different styles just for y'all to look at and stuff.
We'll go back and forth, see what he likes, what he doesn't like, and we'll go back. We'll touch ideas. We'll come up with an idea. Trying to think what our literal timeline was. When did we get like our actual design? Maybe like April.
I was gonna say probably like late March to early April.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like that's when we have a final design, right? So we have the design. We know what color crop tops are going on, etc. We're reaching out to manufacturers, blah 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 blah, all that great stuff. So we're thinking late May drop, and then just in my personal opinion, it seems like we're kind of always fighting on the release date. Like we're kind of always like late, or like 3 weeks late, or like 2 weeks late on like what we originally wanted to do. And I feel like sometimes we might potentially miss like the big window of opportunity there is to get sales for that stuff. So if you could just kind of touch on how you go about planning things in advance for when they're supposed to drop, and not only that, but how you know when to plan and how far to plan ahead.
Yeah. Honestly, me and Ali meet every week and just discuss ideas. I think meeting I don't know how often you guys might meet or like talking just in terms of like on a, like not just a hey conversation, because I know as you guys are friends as well, sometimes it's easy to get steered off track. Like even with me and Ali till this day, like maybe 30% of our business meetings are literally just catching up and just talking shit and like, you know what I'm saying? So it's definitely, I think the meeting as much as possible and having each other kind of, because we're going to meet where we talk ideas and we talk sketches. We always kind of talk full life cycle every time we meet. So it's like, okay, we'll talk. I want to, for example, like say we're working on like new shorts that we want to drop. Okay, I want to drop these shorts. What does the colors look like? What variations might you want to see? Because with Femme, it's like I obviously have to kind of go to her and ask her like, what is she thinking X, Y, and Z, and get that full cycle. But it's always like I always think from beginning to end with every drop, like from the get go. So I think, okay, I like these shorts. Even if I have a semi idea, even if the design isn't all the way done, I like these shorts. I'm thinking models. I'm thinking location where I might want to shoot it. I'm thinking all that from the beginning.
Gotcha.
And obviously, it's like I didn't always used to think like that. I definitely think maybe 3-4 years into the brand is when I really got to that point where I was like, okay, when thinking about designs and when to drop something, you should not, because obviously it changes. You know, you might just find a location where you're like, oh, now we have to shoot here. We have to do this.
Right.
Or the design, it might be a couple weeks before and you're like, I want to change the design completely. It happens. It's creativity. I think I always try to give myself a little bit of like blunder room in terms of start as early as possible and have, we always do like 3 different release dates. So we know there's window of opportunity is from, say it's where we want to drop like something swimwear. You want to do sometime between May to like July, maybe early August, just because it's just with some people, when people think summer, they think June and July. Let's be real. They think June, July, sometimes May. But most people think May, but June and July is when people think summer, they associate with that. So I think I always try to have 3 different release dates. One, the earliest we can, because obviously certain windows of opportunity, you want to make sure as early as possible. You want to, if I'm going to drop swim, I want to drop it 2nd or 3rd week of June. Then you have all of June and July to market it.
Right.
But if shit hits the fan, you might have to just kind of, I guess, cut off the loose edges of, in terms of what, if you had 3 different lookbook ideas, you want to just choose the best one and drop it if you're going to release date 2 or 3, you know, where you might not be able to do a full marketing scale, but the 1 or 2 that you're doing is so fire that it makes up for the loss of time.
Yeah.
So you always try to make sure I have early release date, middle release date, and then if shit hits the fan, we can drop it on July. I don't even know how many days in July 31st. You feel me? Like we can drop it on that day and just make sure our marketing is so A1 that it makes up for all the potential lost time, because people are not even paying attention to the fact that it's damn near August. They're just like, this is so fire, I need it anyways. So I think that's something that has helped me a lot, of just having different release days, so your expectation isn't all the way messed up, because I feel like it is sometimes deflating where you feel like you kind of missed that window of opportunity, and there's those imaginary sales in your mind that you feel like you could have had if you just dropped a week earlier. But I think that a lot of that is just getting through the motions of just understanding, like, hey, like if the sales are there, the sales are there no matter when people see it. The marketing is A1, the product is good, the sales are going to be there, and it's not necessarily window of opportunity. You have to think, hey, like making sure your product stands out from all the other products that might be releasing that week, and understand it is, creativity is not necessarily competitive person to person, but the market is competitive, you know? So how are you competing with that? If you have to, you know, you're pushing your release date back to release date 2 or 3, maybe less marketing, but the marketing has to be so on point that it makes up for everything else, you know?
Yeah, because we're fighting that kind of right now, and I was kind of I'm teetering between, me and him talked about teetering between like whether we should drop something summer related, whether we should drop, whether
ain't finna say too much.
Whether we should drop it like this summer or just hold on to it till next summer. Actually, it's what I was showing you.
And funny enough, not going into detail with what you showed me, but I'm also fighting the same thing, the same exact situation. I don't go into detail, but that was the thing. That was the new conglomerate that I was talking about that might drop this year.
Right, and so that was kind of the thing, is that like we have someone like ready to go to make them. And like they can be done in the next. Like we could probably have them in the hands in like 2 weeks. 2 weeks is what, the 21st of July. So it's kind of like
literally so similar. It's so
is it one of those things where we go ahead with it with like,
honestly, I would say
14 days of summer left, or do we kind of hold on to it and just like mass collect marketing and
like analysis of
of all of that for like August through February, March,
and then drop it like on a spring break thing or something.
April's first marketing, and next summer is just
full throttle,
of just straight marketing you've been collecting.
I would say, because this is honestly exactly what I'm going to do, so I'm just being completely honest with you without viewers knowing what we're talking about, but we know what we're talking about. I would say split the roles. Since you guys have two people, split the roles ASAP. Someone really focusing on marketing analysis, someone really focusing on, okay, what should we do in terms of lookbook, in terms of video and things like that. And then obviously both of you guys can kind of oversee production. But I think if you split the time and really look, okay, this is how we should market. This is what the market analysis is in terms of how we should put it out. If you guys split that time and do it kind of like full throttle, because that's honestly what me and my team are on mayhem mode, trying to get this out, all, full throttle and everything, I think it's doable. And I think maybe if you're not do a full selection, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a very small selection. I'm doing literally 2 different colorways. Like, hey, if you get it now, cool.
Yeah, ours will be a single. Like,
give them a small taste. Make sure the marketing is really good, and it might not be the full throttle sale implode that you were expecting, but show people a little taste of just what's to come. Because then it gives you time to do market analysis within your own brand. Because I think that's another step that a lot of people miss, and that me and Alex figured out very early on, is test things within your own brand. Forget looking at, like, obviously it costs money and things like that, but if you want to know what your consumers want, test different things within your own market. Because looking from the outside, say if flare pants are really popping right now,
right?
But you don't want to look at what a brand like Hellstar is doing, because you're not Hellstar.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be like, do market analysis with someone else's brand. Obviously, for someone who's just starting out or didn't even have the first drop yet, that might be good because they're not spending any money to do that. But it's that much more valuable if it doesn't, break the bank. You want to kind of test out within your own market. Hey, if we drop this, just kind of do a little teaser so that we know for version 2, version 3, it is excellent by the time it comes, like what full steam comes out. That's what I would suggest.
That's funny that we're kind of fighting the same battle at the moment.
Because I think they were also facing another battle.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I don't really. But then the crazy part is, I look above me and the sky is clear.
Like, the sky is blue.
Shout out Florida, bro.
It's pouring rain right now.
It's literally raining just here. Like, we're the only house getting rained on.
I'm getting Millie rocked right here for no reason.
Yeah, you can't make this up.
Good point on Florida, bro. As I scoot my chair over.
Like,
the other part of that is we kind of have like a little there's kind of also this flawed perception because we live in Florida, and the problem is with the stuff we're talking about is like in Florida, that's something like we can drop it any time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have the same weather except for this right now, regardless. So it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of flawed perception because, like, not necessarily in my mind, but you can think that you can drop that all the time in Florida because it's going to be 87 degrees December 3rd. Yeah. So, that's another part of it is kind of understanding the market outside of
that's
where we're at.
Of thinking at all times, okay, like, I understand I have this brand that the base largely is in Florida, but we're building out Atlanta. Right. We're building out New York, and we haven't touched it yet, but LA is like, once I feel like Before I Die has made its like LA tap in, I feel like that's when everything is going to start making sense because we have little bases all across America. We have West Coast, we have East Coast, we got, eventually I want to build up a base in Texas, so we have that whole
and area, you have big spots that can touch other smaller regions.
Exactly.
Just right around it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really like, once you have like Atlanta, New York, and LA, honestly, you pretty much have America. You have America, because those places influence everywhere else so heavily,
And Texas is one of those things where it's kind of its own niche. Yeah. Where Texas and its surrounding like 3 to 4 states is its own. Yeah. It's its own country. So it's one of those things like once you get like the Eastern Seaboard. Yeah. And you get like that popular like LA fashion destination, you've kind of like not necessarily unlocked, but you've unlocked the United States.
Yeah, you unlocked the U.S.
Yeah,
because I think that's really the goal right now is like like LA and then Texas in that order. And I feel like once we have that of just
Yeah.
consistently bringing those groups together, because it's like when you look at it, just thinking about just this, where the state's locations are at. Once you have all of those points and you connect them together, you're literally they meet at all points right in the middle across
Yeah,
all of America,
yeah.
literally. So once you have that, it's like, okay, now what's next, you know? And I think that's something that most brands, in terms of just most brands in general, but especially where we come from, when Broward County is Miami, they think very small.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that helped propel us so early on, was that within our first 2 years, we were already planning New York, we were already planning Atlanta.
Right,
We were like,
right.
all right, this is cool, but Broward can only, not that Broward can only do so much for us, because Broward has obviously supported us throughout this whole entire way. But if we just stick to Broward, it's almost like the love is different. Because I feel like when I came back from New York and doing New York, like we haven't done a Broward event in 2 years. So coming back, doing Miami all the time, doing New York all the time.
Right.
When you come back, it's like the love is completely different. Like it's like they haven't. It's sad to say, but a lot of the times you don't really get that respect unless you pop something somewhere else and then you come back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Because really and I think that's with everything. Like, obviously, if you're an artist or whatever and you go, like, you're from Broward, but you pop shit hella in New York, LA,
Yeah.
your first homecoming show is going to be sold the fuck out because everyone just saw you.
Because I'm like,
pop shit in New
you're
York
doing it in LA, you're doing it in New York.
Now all of a sudden you have the biggest fan base in Broward,
Right.
because
But you're doing the same exact thing you're doing in Broward.
literally. And I think it's just that perception was like, sometimes your hometown won't accept you the same until they see you. They really test you and see you do it in so many
Actually
other
doing
places.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So here,
It's
here.
pouring.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up.
I was about to say, it's pouring rain.
But I got one last thing that I want to touch on. Hey, you can answer this in a minute. We'll be out of here before the skies open up. This is moving crazy.
Yeah, it's moving
Hey,
nuts.
one take, no jokes.
God damn.
All right, there's a picture going around
Yeah.
that might have a caption that says, "Before I get it before I die,"
Yeah.
that I may or may not have seen.
Yeah.
And now, ideally, our brand is called Malcontents. All right.
Wait, have I seen this picture?
I think you might have seen it. I was doing some digging. I'm not gonna lie to you. I might have been, a couple of years deep into his Instagram. I might have been deep in
use time traveling.
Yeah. So I just want to relate that concept right there, that quick quote that you had there, and tie it all the way back into how you are a malcontent in your own right, and kind of what you think about that.
I mean, I honestly think the spirit of Before I Die was birthed in me by like that same age, 16, 17, before it really all the way came out.
We're going to
So I
insert
think,
that picture in here too.
Like, yeah, because honestly, I don't even know what pictures.
The ops got his old pictures. That's crazy. That's crazy.
But it's like you have that spirit and like that rebellion against not necessarily everything, but it's just like, okay, like that rebellion of just like, I want to take control of the path of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the context of like your brand, I think it kind of ties in hand, because it's like that spirit it's not necessarily this. It might not be kind of designed the same way or like come out on the same way on the front end, but I feel like the spirit is very much the same. Like from the get go, that rebellious spirit of just like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and if you don't agree with it,
and that's kind of like the whole for most of the people that like know our brand. That's kind of like the whole premise of our brand is kind of not only reaching out to people that think like-minded, but also trying to get people to think more like-minded in the way that, like, this is so cliche, but like your life is genuinely yours. Like you can genuinely go and do whatever you want, like right now. Like, granted,
and I think we're both like proof of that. Like, I was 18 and said I had no money, no business having a brand or dropping a brand. I had $500 to my name. It costs $450 to get those samples made and do that shoot for my first drop, and I just did it because I said, and it was like right outside of high school where everyone's talking college. What are we gonna do for college?
Right.
What am I doing this? What am I doing for that? And I'm just like, I'm gonna start a brand, and I hope it works out. So,
and it's one of those things like me and him have got to a place that is somewhat the same, but got there in such different ways. Like I went to college, played college soccer, did engineering, and like I work full-time engineering and do this when I get home for 5-6 hours a day. Like it's a completely different way of getting there, but we're at the same place, and that's like just another great example of one of those things where it's like comparison's a thief of joy. So like I can't look at what you and you did and say, oh, like I want to go like I want to go specifically study designing. I want to go just like designing for X amount of years.
Yeah.
I want to do this pop up, this New York. Like I can't look at you and do that. I have to kind of forge my own path in the way that I want to do that. Exactly. I'm gonna let Drew wrap this up because out of everybody here, I'm getting bodied the most.
Yeah, go ahead, slide up out of here.
Y'all stay fresh. He can wrap that up.
Oh, I got you. I'll take that right there. Yeah,
Yo.
like I said,
And I feel like the rain is like literally targeting Rico, bro. Like the rain was like here. So
swear.
I'm getting a little bit of it, but
Facts.
damn.
Live, unscripted. Can't make this up. Oh yeah. Well, thank you again. For, coming on here. Of course, it's our first podcast, and I couldn't imagine having a better guest.
Thank you.
Friend,
Honored.
guest, creative designer, all that, man.
Sir.
You do it all. I love it. I love Before I Die. It's popping. Everything was great yesterday,
Sir,
and
thank you.
I
Thank you.
just much more success, and
and
a lot more is on the
likewise.
horizon.
Yeah, and likewise, right back at you. What you guys have done in the short time that you guys have had the brand so far, it's like you guys can propel this so much further. With anytime you guys need advice, just ask, because I've have done the trial and error for us. You know what I'm saying, for any creative who honestly takes this shit seriously, because I'm not gonna give away the keys to anybody who doesn't want to take it seriously.
Right.
But anybody who and this is both, I'm saying this both to Drew, to Rico, and anybody who's watching this right now. My Instagram is at Adrian before Giovani, just like that. The Instagram for the brand is at Get It Before I Die. If you have any questions, reach out to my personal page and just ask. If I see you take this serious, I will give you the keys to anything you want. My screen printer, I'll give you the keys to my manufacturer if it's that serious, and I believe in that. So I think
that.
I'm one of those people who's an open book, and this is
His IG gonna be linked below, by the way.
Yep, right below. So I think honestly, I'm an open book, especially now at this point. Like from that moment I told you about in New York, and that kid coming up to me, I realized I have to be an open book, because the whole lost artist, mysterious artist that no one can speak to or know, it's dead. Like I want to be an open book and be a source for other creatives and any other entrepreneurs who have that ambition, especially those young kids, that young boy or girl who's looking at this right now saying, how do I get there? Feel free to reach out. I do want to have a couple of shout outs. So shout out obviously to Malconte, shout out to Drew, shout out to Rico, shout out to Chris behind the camera. Y'all can't see him right now, but shout out to Chris, Mr. Gallus behind the camera. Shout out to Ali, shout out my whole team, shout out to Annie, shout out to Michael, shout out to Amaya, shout out to Sebi, shout out to Nini, shout out to Sadiq, shout out to Kenzie, shout out to Liz. It's like I was shout, if I missed any names, I'm sorry. I'm on a streak right now. Shout out my mom, shout out my dad, shout out my brothers, obviously shout out my aunts, my uncles, but really shout out to my supporters, because I would not be sitting here right now, and you guys would not be watching or even caring about what I had to say if it wasn't for all of you. So thank all of you, and no matter what, get it before you die.
There you go. Appreciate you coming out here.
Yes,
Appreciate y'all tuning in. We out.